Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Solo Spooky Story. My name's Rob, and today I'll be your host. For those of you that don't know, the Solo Spooky Stories are generally a shorter episode where it's just myself. I'll talk about something that I find particularly interesting, a topic that's been submitted by a listener, or something that, myself or Suze would like to talk about in a full episode, but there's just not enough content to it. And, it just kind of serves as just an alternative way for people to listen to us. A lot of people also like the shorter kind of form episodes where, they can listen to them for like 10 minutes, go off, while you're having a cup of coffee or something. And so, we like to let everyone have a bit of something that they're interested in with the podcast. So this is a nice way to do it. But with that said, I hope you're having a lovely day whenever it is that you're listening to this, and we'll get into it. So, as I said at the start, part of these episodes is we like to let people submit things to us that we'll talk about. And one of these things that I have been really interested in, for anyone that knows or listens to the podcast at all, that I absolutely adore UFOs more than anything else, really, with the topics that we cover. Big UFO head. And yeah, I'm conscious that a lot of our recent episodes have been about UFOs. And again, today is no different. We will change that. Suze has some episodes coming up, I'm sure, that are not UFO focused, as do I actually, to be fair. So, we'll be moving off the UFOs soon enough, but there's been a lot going on in the media recently. Huge amount going on in the media recently, actually, about UFOs, UAPs, as they're known now. The kind of the disclosure that's going on, or soft disclosure, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot going on in the media, and it would be a shame not to kind of talk about things as it's happening, because it's rare. Particularly with kind of like paranormal things that we talk about, it's rare to have something that's currently happening. Like a lot of the things we talk about are quite historical or, just even in the recent past, but you're always talking about it with a lens of the past rather than talking about something that's happened currently. And what we're talking about today initially was something that was actually submitted to us by a listener to the show. So Dave, who listens to us, submit this just really, really interesting video to us. And to say that I'm confused by it is really an understatement. So for a bit of context, Dave lives in Ireland. He specifically lives in the kind of the Tala sort of Dublin region. I don't want to give any more information than that, but that's where he's based. And this is a video that he himself took. So it's not like he's sending on someone else's clip or anything like that. This has come directly from him, and he gave me some context to the clip as well. So I'm going to post this clip on Instagram, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this. But to describe the clip, basically the clip shows the outside of Dave's house. It's a Ring doorbell, and the camera, as everyone knows, like Ring, it's like a fixed point, and it's just looking outside at approximately 11:30 at night. There's nothing happening. It's just the back of his car and basically just looking out onto his road. And the clip, it's only about 30 seconds long, but what's really interesting about this clip is at about 20 seconds or so into the video, in the top left-hand corner in the night sky, there appears to be some sort of object that basically comes into frame and then goes across the sky and then out of camera frame. And it's one of those things that if you blink, you'll miss it, sort of thing. Like, it goes quite quickly. But what I see, kind of my initial reaction when I saw it first was, I'm very confused by this. So I slowed it down a few times, zoomed it in, had a bit more of a look to it. And I really don't know what it is, to be perfectly honest with you. So this is why we're putting it out here today. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you think this actually is. So I've sent it around to a few people, and I've had some people come back to me to say that it looks like some sort of triangular shaped craft, and it looks like it's spinning on an axis, which I would have to agree, that's kind of what it does look like to me as well. It's like three white lights that seem to appear in the sky and then kind of like pivot around each other as they move out of frame. So as I said, it's quite quick, and I'm not actually sure if the lights are white themselves. As people may be familiar with Ring, like it's kind of more of like an infrared camera at night, so we don't actually know what color the lights are. The other thing that someone else said to me was, I sent it on to a few people, as I said, and one of them who's familiar with, I suppose, like filming techniques and such, said that as far as they're kind of concerned, it doesn't look CG or like computer generated at all. Like, they're quite confident it isn't. And I'm not saying that Dave has done it, but it's just to put it out there more than anything else. And then other people have got back to me to say that they think it could potentially be birds flying at night, which totally is a possibility. It's potentially that is what it is. I don't know of any birds myself that would fly at like 11:30 at night unless they were spooked, but the way they move doesn't appear to be, I suppose, natural, if that's the way you want to put it. So As I said, I really don't know what this is, and I just want to thank Dave so much for sending this in, because it's such a strange clip. Like, it really, really is, and it's amazing to have these things submitted into us. So yeah, like as I said, I'll post it online with this episode, and yeah, like let me know what you think this is. I'm going to post it on Instagram, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts on what this could potentially be. I know Dave would as well. Like, he'd just love to kind of have an answer of, what is it, apart from anything else, because like it is a bit strange. It's a bamboozling enough one. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting clip, and I can't wait to hear what people's thoughts are on this, and maybe we can find some sort of conclusion to what it is for Dave, because as I can imagine, it must be a strange one to have this image on your doorbell and not have a clue what it is. So please do submit your thoughts on what it is. I'd really love to hear it. So with that said, I'm going to move on to kind of a short UFO alien story that I've unfortunately not actually heard of until I started kind of looking into a few bits and pieces, and it was really Dave's kind of video that inspired me to look into kind of some other UFO stories from Ireland and the UK, and just to kind of see if I could find any kind of links to shape and things like that. Now, the one today isn't that, but I found this really interesting story that I briefly wanted to talk about. So today I want to talk about the Ilkley Moor UFO incident. And for all intents and purposes, this seems to be actually a really interesting case. And the reason why I chose this today is because it's produced this really interesting piece of photo evidence. And I thought it would just be really appropriate to go along with Dave's video that he submitted to us, that is also really an interesting piece of potential evidence into some sort of unknown craft. But the interesting thing about the Ilkley Moor UFO incident is that if it's real, it's like groundbreaking in the evidence that it provides. And if it isn't, it's an incredibly elaborate hoax. But like, if you take it at face value, like, this is a phenomenal story that I really just want to talk about. And I'm actually quite surprised I hadn't heard about this before, because the more I kind of look into it, loads of people seem to know about it, but there doesn't seem to be too much about it online, which I just find really interesting. Weirdly enough, the most information I could actually find was on Wikipedia for some reason. So yeah, like, I dug a little bit deeper and things like Reddit and medium.com. I did find more on it, but I just found it really interesting that it was actually Wikipedia that had the most amount of information, or the most centralized bit of information anyway. So this story, this case, I suppose, whatever you want to call it, takes place on December 1st, 1987. A man named Philip Spencer, just to note, that is actually not his name, it's a pseudonym. He didn't want to give his full name because he's a retired police officer. So to protect his own identity, he didn't give his actual name. He had moved from London to West Yorkshire with his wife and child, and the intention was just to be closer to his wife's family following his retirement. So on the morning of December 1st, he decided to take a walk on Ilkley Moor to visit his father-in-law in East Morton. So as he was walking up a small hill, he noticed what he described as an odd-looking figure, and he said that it was just up the trail ahead of him. And as he got closer to it, he acknowledged that there was kind of a bit of fog, there was a bit of mist in the area, so like his vision was a bit obscured, distance and all was a bit obscured, kind of viewing objects far away, so he wanted to move closer to it. And as he approached it, he noticed that the figure was a dark green colour, which immediately was probably a bit confusing to him, but I suppose being on the moors, he maybe could have initially assumed that it could have been a hiker or a walker out just wearing a dark green hiking gear. But as he got closer to it, he saw that the object or figure was approximately about 4 feet tall, and it seemed to have what he thought was an oversized head with these kind of long, thin arms by its side. So the like stereotype, I suppose, alien description that you're getting right there, like the big head, long thin arms. In my head, initially when I was reading this, I was kind of picturing like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that sort of alien at the end, but obviously he's green rather than grey, but that's the same kind of image I had in my head. And Spencer went on to describe the creature as having this very strange, almost human-like face. He said that the face was large, but that it had these almond-shaped eyes and a small mouth. So again, that kind of classic grey alien image that we all have in our heads now. That's kind of what this is, but green, I suppose, rather than grey. So Spencer says that he was initially like quite taken aback by this and didn't know what to do, understandably. I think everyone would be. And he says that the creature actually made a gesture at him. So he doesn't quite know how he interpreted it this way, but he interpreted the creature gesturing him as a warning to stay away from it. So Spencer, despite this kind of warning that he received, I say warning in quotes, warning that he received from the creature, he opted to actually take out his camera that he had with him and decided to take a picture of the creature. So apparently as soon as he took the picture, the creature ran away and Spencer followed it into the fog, which, you know, fair play to him. I suppose being a retired police officer, you know, maybe he's got some bigger balls than other people, but, you know, still it's a ballsy move to just run into the mist after whatever this creature was. So, you know, I got to give it to him. Like, that is definitely, you know, something that I'm not quite sure I would do myself, but fair play to him. So yeah, as I said, he took this picture of the creature, and I will talk about it soon, about the picture itself, because it actually, we do have it. But Spencer says that as he pursued the creature, he saw this kind of whitish colored craft, and he said that as he got closer to it, he saw that it began to rise from the moor and slowly started to just disappear into the sky. So he described the craft as having these two saucer-shaped parts attached to each other, with each one being on top of the other, and that it was producing this loud hum kind of accompanying the craft's ascent. So basically just imagine these two saucer shapes kind of placed on top of one another. That's basically what it is. And that, yeah, there was this loud hum coming from the craft. So Spencer says that he kind of stood there for a few minutes looking at the craft, looking at it ascending into the sky and then disappearing. And as this was happening, he said that as the craft began to disappear, he suddenly started to feel quite disoriented and didn't really know what was going on. He said he felt quite confused and, yeah, as I said, disoriented, kind of wandering around in the mist. And it was at this point, I suppose, as he started to realize that he was feeling disoriented, that he checked his watch. And he actually realized that about 2 hours had passed and that basically he had just missed this time in whatever sort of capacity that it was in. He just completely missed this time. He didn't know where it had gone. He doesn't remember this time, but according to his watch, he was about 2 hours later than expected when he'd reached the other town that he was walking towards. He also said that he had a compass with him, which I suppose, you know, being maybe a retired police officer, he would have these things, maybe like the camera, you know, the compass, all that sort of stuff, you know. I guess it makes sense. So he said he had a compass with him and that it was pointing in the opposite direction than it should have been. So, you know, say it was pointing, he was trying to go north, it was pointing south. And ultimately, Spencer said that he was quite confused and decided to divert off the path rather than continuing on his planned route. So I think he just was so thrown by this that he decided, you know what, I'm not going to keep walking in the moors. I'm going to go off. I'm going to go into a town and just kind of like look after myself, be a bit safe about this, you know, because clearly something is wrong. So yeah, so we actually have the picture, as I said, and the picture, if it's real, is definitive proof of a UFO, of an alien. Like, there's no two ways to put it. Like, if this is a real photo, and a lot of people say it is, like, this is basically definitive proof that aliens exist, if you want to look at it in a very kind of like black and white sense. So this image very clearly shows what looks like basically as exactly described, this alien creature with long thin arms and a large head, almond eyes, standing against some sort of rock, like leaning against it, and it's staring right at the camera. Like, there's basically no other way to put it. Like, it's staring right at the camera. And like, as I said, like, if this is real, like, this is some phenomenal evidence. Like, it really, really is. And I've kind of looked at a few different pictures online and they're all kind of quite consistent in the same one. You know, often you find with these kind of UFO stories that you'll see one picture kind of claiming to be that picture, and then you look somewhere else and you find another one and it's like, oh no, this is the actual picture. But consistently across the board, you see the same picture coming up and up again. And there's been a few people who've tried to enhance the photo, tried to do some kind of like contrast changes with it just to like highlight the image a bit more. So I'll post one of them along with the original image so everyone can kind of see the supposed creature in a little bit more clear detail. The thing that I find really interesting about this case is that when you look online, like, there are a lot of people who are very like certain that this is in fact like a definitive evidence and proof of UFO. A lot of people kind of say that, you know, this is like, it's quite difficult to, like, I suppose, fake a picture like this. And, you know, this retired police officer, the fact that he's given a pseudonym rather than his own name kind of shows how seriously he's taken to this. Like, this man doesn't really want the attention, from what I gather. He's talked about his experience. He's shared the picture, but from that onwards, I don't really see him engaging with anything else beyond that. So it really does seem to be a case of like, he's kind of shown this and he's gone, look, I don't want anything more to do with this. You don't even have my real name. So I you know, I think in a strange sense, it kind of also lends more credence to it in a weird way. I don't know. I could be talking to my ass at this point, but that's kind of how it seems anyway. So kind of after all of this happened, Spencer contacted some UFO researchers. So someone called Jenny Randalls and Peter Ho. They apparently were quite skeptical initially, but after Spencer kind of talked to them a little bit more and gave them the photograph that he took, apparently they actually became quite convinced about this. And this ultimately led to the photograph and Spencer's account receiving quite a bit of media attention, specifically in the UK. The photograph, to be fair to it, it is very blurry. And some skeptics kind of point to that as being proof that it could be faked, that it could even just be like a cardboard cutout. But then other people have pointed out that, the man was shocked by what he was seeing. Like, it's just, a film camera, it's in foggy conditions, like conditions are not good. And, he basically did what he could with what he had. But this all kind of led to this incident basically becoming a fairly debated UFO case, particularly in the UK, but like online, you see a lot of debate on it as well. So I've seen online that basically over the years, the photograph and the incident have been kind of investigated and reinvestigated again and again using different kind of techniques, like, as I said, computer enhancement techniques, some looking at the photo in particular. And yeah, it just seems to be one of these things that no one really knows. And I don't think we ever really will, unless, Spencer comes out himself and says something differently. We'll never really know. So yeah, it's kind of remained this topic of, I suppose, fascination and like fairly hot debate online, particularly in places like Reddit, among kind of UFO enthusiasts and skeptics. And as I said at the start, if this is true, this basically would be pretty much one of the strongest pieces of evidence for extraterrestrial life that we have out there. But yeah, that kind of concludes the story. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As I said, I'll post the photos so you can all see for yourself and let me know what you think. But as I said, this was all inspired by Dave's initial video that he sent on to me. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts on both of these pieces of evidence that I've kind of presented today. Like Dave's video in particular, it's just fascinating. And like the more and more I look at it, the more I try to pick out things. And I just find it really, really interesting. And I know Dave, I'm sure, would just love to hear your thoughts on it. And as I said, like really to see if we can get an answer for what this is. And yeah, with the other case as well, the Ilkley Moor, I'd love to see what you think about the image of the supposed alien. It's a really, really cool picture. But yeah, with that said, I hope you've really enjoyed this episode whenever it is that you're listening to this. And yeah, if you want to reach out to us, you can get us at Gmail at thespookyafpodcast@gmail.com. You can get us at Instagram at thespookyafpod. We're also on Threads at thespookyafpod. And yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on this. And with that said, I hope you've had a lovely time listening to this, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.